Our Free and Equal segment tonight, a Muslim imam is calling for the extermination of the Jewish people. This imam lives right here in the state of California. Imam Ammar Shaheen has released videos saying he wants to, quote, liberate the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the filth of the Jews and annihilate them down to the very last one. It's shocking. Watch.
اللهم إنا نسألك نصرة المسجد الأقصى وسائر بلاد المسلمين اللهم حرر المسجد الأقصى من أدناس اليهود اللهم عليك بمن أغلق المسجد الأقصى يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم أرنا فيهم يوما أسودا وأرنا فيهم عجائب قدرتك اللهم أهلكهم بددا وأحصهم عددا ولا تغادر منهم أحدا.
With me now, former IDF soldier and former NYPD officer Micha Danzig. Micha, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
Micha, aside from the fact that this is the most atrocious thing that I've ever heard someone calling for, it's shocking because it happened right here. I mean, we're filming this show in San Diego, California right now. This is not something that happened in Iran. This is not something that happened in the caliphate of ISIS. This happened practically in our backyard.
That's right. It happened. Not only is it shocking because it happened in Davis, California, but it happened literally across the street. It's the Islamic Center of Davis, and it's literally across the street from the University of California at Davis. So this is the mosque that is there for the university students at Davis, and this is the kind of stuff they're hearing.
Right, and I mean, these words, I hate to repeat them, but at the same time, I think we need to expose what radical clerics like this imam are talking about, to annihilate the Jews down to the very last one.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, unfortunately, and I've told your viewers this before, if you go to memri.org, M-E-M-R-I, and you just click on the various links they provide, all they do is translate accurately media and sermons like this one that are in the Arab world. And this one, unfortunately, as you said, was not technically in the Arab world. It's here in California. And I want to emphasize that we shouldn't say that this is something that happens in every mosque in America or every mosque in California. I've been to many mosques. I've heard many sermons by imams. As I've talked on your show before, if there are Sufi mosques and Ahmadiyya who are very peaceful, and this is an abomination to them just as it is to you and I. But unfortunately, this type of radical Islamist supremacist rhetoric, which is, of course, dominates in the Middle East and in the Arab world, is now certainly here. And it's, of course, we already know it's been a huge problem in places in Europe, like in France and in Germany and London, and that these imams give these types of sermons and radicalize their local populations to do exactly what this guy is telling them to do, to go out and try to kill Jews.
Right, and I mean, this is why when conservatives and Republicans say that the threat of radical Islam is something that we face in the United States, it's not just something in the Middle East. This is part of the reason why, because there are radical imams, and I would echo what you say. It's certainly not every mosque in our nation, certainly not. The majority, no, they don't speak like this. But these people in our country, they do exist, and they are inspiring other people to go out and wage these so-called lone wolf terror attacks. It's right here in our backyards, and it can happen to us.
And the worst thing about this was really the Islamic Center of Davis's reaction. When Memri.org put the translated version of this guy's speech or sermon on its website, their reaction to it was, oh, this was taken out of context. I'm like, context? First of all, a lot of the things he said were in English. And in English, he's very clearly saying that it's a duty of every Muslim to fight Jews. That's what he's saying. In English, he's clearly quoting a hadith that is, one of the most anti-Semitic hadiths that are part of Islamic theology, and it's the very hadith that is part of the Hamas covenant, and it talks about how rocks and stones and trees are going to actually talk to Muslims and point out Jews for them to kill. Right? That's what he was quoting in this. So the context that matters to me, and that doesn't appear to matter to the Islamic Center of Davis, is that Davis is already a community where Jews are under attack, where Jewish fraternities have been pasted with swastikas, where the tires of the cars of Jewish students have been slashed. The context that matters to me is that the lies about Jews threatening Al-Aqsa have been told now for over 100 years in the Arab world. And every time those lies are told in the Arab world by imams like this one, Jews die. It was 1921, those lies were told, and dozens of Jews died. In 1929, those lies were told, and hundreds of Jews died. And just last week, the same day this Imam, if we can call him a man of the cloth, so to speak. He really isn't, in my view. But this Imam, the same day this Imam gave this horrible speech, 3 Jews in Israel were murdered, were massacred as they sat down for a Shabbat dinner to celebrate the birth of their 5th grandchild by a Muslim Arab supremacist boy, 19-year-old man, who took a knife because they were telling him, and he wrote this in his Facebook post, Al-Aqsa is under attack by the Jews. And he said, the sons of monkeys and pigs need to pay. That's the exact kind of language, a scripture, so to speak, that this Imam at Davis was quoting, calling Jews sons of monkeys and pigs. That's when you think of people as the sons of monkeys and pigs, then it's not very difficult for you to run into their kitchen and stab them to death.
Right, and I mean, that's the point I guess I was trying to make in this segment, is that this kind of radical rhetoric isn't isolated either. It is here in our country, but it's not isolated. You can see that narrative connection. First, this Imam, uses this kind of rhetoric here, but it's also very similar, almost identical actually, to the rhetoric adopted by the Palestinian Authority, the leaders of the Palestinian government. It also, like you said, is exactly the exact hadith quoted by this Palestinian terrorists who murdered these innocent Israelis, these 3 Israelis, just last week. That connection, we can't ignore that connection, and we can't ignore the fact that there are politicians, Democratic politicians in our nation who defend the Palestinian Authority, who want us to continue giving money to the Palestinian Authority. They're the ones that promote this kind of vicious, horrible anti-Semitic ideology.
Yeah, and we've talked before about the sad growth of anti-Semitism on the left in this country. Obviously, it's already a big problem in Europe, and this bizarre marriage almost between radical Islamist anti-Semitism and left-wing anti-Semitism. I mean, look, the stuff this guy is saying is no different than what a white supremacist says about Jews. The only difference is that he's an Islamist supremacist, right? But it's the same fascism, it's the same hate, it's the same evil ideology that views all Jews as if they're subhuman. And that's what this guy's preaching. And the people on the left support that or try to claim that it's political, it's not anti-Semitic, or it needs context. Sorry, there's no context that makes this right. When he says that we need to get the filth of the Jews off of Al-Aqsa, you're right. He's exactly mirroring the words of Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, who roughly 2 years ago said that the Jews and their filth need to stay away from Al-Aqsa. And when he said that, Jews died. People reacted to his words under the Palestinian Authority and went out with knives and started stabbing Jews. Those words matter.
Right, and then the Palestinian Authority paid the terrorists who killed the Israelis, and our money, our taxpayer money here in the United States, went in almost the same amount as was paid to the terrorists we gave to the Palestinian Authority.